tap into it, and we didn't at the time. But when we got this copy from him, then this is what helped us to find the address of this usdefense.com. And so then when I took it down to Naoma Friday evening for her to send it to Brother Chandler and Brother Govinder, Brother Strawman, which is already in Australia, we sent it then to a sister in Canada who's going to spread it out up there. Well, then she got then the next day's usdefense.com. And this speaks how other parts of the world is beginning to prepare for this. Now, let me say this tonight, brothers and sisters. I have not heard one news media yet, in all of the negotiation process and the words of criticism has been said, not one thing has ever been said. Nations are preparing for this or that. But you got to understand, the world's got a very sneaking way of slipping up on you something that you're not aware of. So I'm going to have it read to you. It's for the sake of this message. So come on, bud. This is about what U.S., Britain, the European Command, and such like.
It says U.S., Israeli, British forces gearing up for Mideast conflict. U.S. forces in EUCOM, the European Command Theater of Operations, as well as British and Israeli military forces are gearing up for what sources called an inevitable regional conflict in the Middle East, reported in Thursday editions. Citing unnamed sources, the paper said elements of the U.S. V Corps, including the 1st Armored and the 1st Infantry Divisions, along with supporting brigades, were being moved to a staging and training center in Grafenwohr, Germany. Also, the report said 2 Patriot missile batteries were preparing to deploy to Israel to bolster an anti-missile ground forces already in Israel and Kuwait. Meanwhile, the report said British SAS Special Force troops were preparing to deploy to the desert in advance of operations expected against Arab and Palestinian forces. And Israeli commanders, the paper said, have urged the government of Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who is also defense minister, to order full mobilization of Israeli reserves to bolster active forces. Sources also told the paper that EUCOM has upgraded its alert status to Bravo, the second highest alert status in a range consisting of Alpha, the lowest, and to Delta, the highest, and is expected to upgrade that status to Charlie by January the 20th, Inauguration Day in the U.S. The report said Lieutenant Colonel Dave LePan, a U.S. Army spokesman, confirmed that EUCOM had upgraded its alert status to Bravo, but neither he nor other U.S. Army spokesmen could confirm if that alert status was to be upgraded to Charlie in a few days. The Army also denied any knowledge of EUCOM troop movements, the paper said, noting that no major training cycles were scheduled in January for EUCOM forces. In a separate report, sources told the paper that the U.S. military had ordered soldiers to get their families out of Israel, but neither the Pentagon nor U.S. Department would confirm that report. At this juncture, we don't feel that that decision is merited. A State Department spokesman told the paper, whenever something happens, we go through all the options and decide on the best course of action. At this point, we don't feel that that decision is merited. The paper said that the State Department issued a travel warning to Americans and U.S. diplomatic personnel in Israel December the 12th, warning them to stay out of the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, all areas managed by Palestinian Authority. When you look at these signals, it's 10 years ago again, one source said, noting that other sources who don't know each other are all saying the same things. The latest round of violence between Israel and the Palestinians begins September the 28th, when the Likud party leader and likely Barak's successor, Ariel Sharon, visited a holy site in Jerusalem. The visit upset the Palestinians. Other sources in Israel have said that the IDF commanders are making preparations in 2001 for a wider regional war.
Thank you, brother. Now from the scriptures, I'd like for you to go with me back to Jeremiah, the 30th chapter. We want to continue on this time of trouble to analyze it. What all does it affect? What does it disturb? And you're going to find out, brothers and sisters, it's going to affect everything within the confines of America. This is not just a time of trouble against Israel alone. The last 3 years, I will say, when the politicians did release anything that the media could express, it's always more or less what they have planned for the New World Order in and around the beginning of the year 2000, 2001, the beginning of the new millennium. All of this goes to show you there's been great plans. A lot of concrete things have been poured in the political diplomacy line that you and I know nothing about. You and I have never been told that if this great thing of the UN and the United Nations in the New World Order is allowed to go in full force, you've never been told that it's going to affect your Constitution. Well, it will. It will annul it. That's why, brothers and sisters, for the past 40 years, I will say, America has been on a course downward. There's no need for the intellectual people saying that they're not aware of this. They are aware of it. The point of it is they don't care. They've somehow or other sold out to something that wants to change America. They look back what we was, brothers and sisters, 50 years ago and back, as though that America was a people held captive to, we will say, a bunch of suppression. They didn't do this because they were oppressed. They didn't do this because they was afraid to. They didn't do this because the law wouldn't allow it. I have to say, brothers and sisters, there's a lot of things Americans are doing now. They would be better off, brothers and sisters, if the whole thing was in hell where it came from. We've got a class of people today that wants to live like hell. I have to say it. They talk like it. They think like it. They live like it. They act like it. And the generation they produce walks in their same footsteps. It's all right, brothers and sisters, for them to become immorally engaged. Nothing wrong with that. But if they take a gun and start shooting, oh, that's wrong. In the eyes of who is it wrong? What written law says it's wrong? The one and only that I was raised up to believe is what the Ten Commandments said. And our Constitution and our constitutional laws was all based in around that. Now when you take that out of it, I have to say, any law that man has made, it's a man-made law. Now I say this for the sake of common reasoning. We've got politicians today would be better off if they had to face up to men like Billy the Kid. They would be. All because Billy the Kid could be shoved so far. I've read all about him. I happen to know that he was a former man that it was said, in the presence of women, he knew how to use his language. That's better than what we've got today. And the first man he ever shot was a Chinese man in Silver City for speaking a derogatory word to his mother when she was walking down a little one-horse town. That's what it was then. That started him on his road. America likes a long ways tonight from being the great America it was 50 years back. We never needed a lot of the stuff we've got today. For 175 years of the life of America, we prospered. We were known as something great. But now the whole world begins to see us as a nation of domineering, political, wanting to put America over the whole world. I have to say it's time for America to come home and mind her own business. Now, we talked this morning about this time of trouble, the time of Jacob's trouble. And then we took it into Joshua. Don't forget Jericho. It's set a type. It's right in front of us. It's going to be repeated. It's not 10 years off. When we read this military preparedness, what does that tell you? 10 years ago, there was a war in the Middle East, the Gulf War. 10 years. Right in the same month of January. It was not Israel fighting it. America was engaged in it. And I have to say, thank God it was one war that was not run by the politicians. Colin Powell and Schwarzkopf. They had both been in Vietnam. They had worked their way not up only the battlefield, but through the other ranks of the military regime. And the day that Bill Clinton, the next day after he's inaugurated president, he mixed this thing knowing he wants to put the homosexual in the military. Colin Powell was standing about like this from his right shoulder. And the way the camera showed him, it just like the light went out of Colin Powell's eyes. And he just like he looked down. Wasn't long after that he resigned. Now I have to say, brothers and sisters, there are some natural-minded men that's got sense enough to know when enough is enough. Now for the last 8 years, we've had a man that cared less the shame that he brought America to. He did it as a president. And a lot of other politicians followed likewise. People's writing books. Lawyers will Satan. Wait till he gets out of office. And then the day before he leaves, he makes a sweet little apologizing. And they all fall over backwards like they had taken a sleeping pill. He outsmarted them again. Now, how long do you think America's going to keep on like this? It's not going to last another 5 years. I'm going to say some things tonight I wish I didn't have to say. I'm not saying that for attention. Because when I've said it, you'll know what I meant. When this nation was faced with a political analysis, like in Florida, who was it, who wasn't? The main two classes of people it touched was the black people in America and those that was ready for a change. There are thousands and millions right now in America, both black and white, they don't want to change. But let me tell you tonight, in the next 4 years, you're going to see a change of some kind. You're going to see a change that's going to rip some things all to pieces. The news media don't know it's coming, but I do. Why? Because I see it in the Scriptures. If we're entering that era of time, that this conflict is to be fought in the Middle East, then it's going to give Israel a chance to show God with them. And if God is with them, then you're going to see Michael. Daniel 12, stand up. And when Michael stands up in his army, you can rest assured. Bill Clinton, Bush, and none of the rest. Now all the news media are going to be able to stop it. For the last number of years, black Christians have been caught between two opposites. Let this go on the tape. To my black brothers and sisters in America, if you can't listen to what I'm saying on this tape tonight, don't never darken the doors of Faith Assembly again. But the day will come when I'm saying tonight, you'll hang your head and say, I would to God I had to listen to it. I will say this in this much. It was one thing for the black people to be given a change from being second-class citizens to become first-class citizens. But my brothers and my sisters, how long are you going to keep looking back to the yesteryears? Do you think you're going to glory on that? You're not. You're either for Jesus Christ or you're for Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson never did preach one sermon showing men how to be saved. He only tried to show the black people how to have freedom and not be a second-class citizen. We've got thousands and millions of whites will follow anything. They will. Faith Assembly, if I say something tonight that hurts your feelings, I'll say this. You cannot be in the bride of Christ and sit on the fence with your feet dangling and mixing up in the political systems of the world. I can stand for a man and vote for him if I feel that his principles are right and he's going to carry out some of them that are right. But God never saved me because I was a Republican or a Democrat. And you're not going to go to heaven because you're either one. You're either going to put Jesus Christ first in the revelation of Him and truth, or you're going to wind up in hell sliding down the corridors. Bid one or the other. Only one bunch is 3 steps ahead of the other. When they all get there, they're going to say, would to God we had done something different. America used to know it. And I have to say, let them spend their millions to better this, to better that. You've had the best. People are driving Cadillacs today. In the Depression, they never thought about it. But they're the generation that can. And I have to say, what more does America need? Our homes are air conditioned. We never had it back in the Great Depression. How many times in the summertime we had a 2-story house? Normally in the wintertime I slept upstairs. But you all know that an upstairs room can be mighty hot because the ceilings are lower. I'd take an old piece of the newspaper, go downstairs and get right in front of the screen door that led to the outside. I'd just take a pillow. So I'd lie down on the floor and sit there or lay there until I fanned myself to sleep. Wake up the next morning, you'll have sweat until it felt like you could just scrape butter off of your skin. We didn't know no different. We didn't know there's such a thing coming down the road called air conditioning. And the only thing we knew was an old fireplace fire or the old drum stove. But we absolutely, as long as we had something that kept us warm, as long as we had biscuits in the oven, some fried ham, some milk gravy, scrambled eggs, as far as I was concerned, we had it made. We had an old number 3 galvanized wash tub we took a bath on Saturday night. We didn't know what it was, hot and cold running water. We had it on the old heating stove in the kitchen, shut the door, stripped down and took a bath. And sometimes the hot water was too hot to get in, but the back of that galvanized, if you touched it, it felt like you was touched with an icicle. That's the truth. I'm not lying. Brother Preach, you know it is. The war was over. Here come electricity through the countryside. We're moving on up. My land, we got electricity in the home. Man alive. What long we got water heaters. My. Look what we've got now. Then here come television. Goodness sakes alive. But now then that don't mean anything. We want more. We've had the best. What more could we want? Well, I want a better education. You wouldn't know a bit more than you know tonight. 2 and 2 still 4. And I'll still beat you at the multiplication tables. Some of them can't even get through the grocery store unless they have a calculator. I'm not making fun. I'm just saying it's what your life has been subjected to. You took advantage of everything that's easy. You were never compelled to count and figure, re-add it or re-subtract it. You had to use your head and your fingers. Now, they don't like for you to use that today. Well, you can do it behind your back anyhow. Because that was my add machine. And I have to say, go jump in the creek if you don't like it. Because as long as I got the right answer, that's all I'm after. Now then, if you think there's something coming down the road, you better go somewhere else. It's looking right at you. And that's not me. Jeremiah 30. I'm going to read down 2 verses again, the 7th and the 8th. Then I'm going over to the last ones that I read this morning. Alas. What does that word alas mean? Oh my. Listen. For that day is great. So that none is like it. Never. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. It's when God begins to set certain things in motion just to reverse it the way it's been for the last 40 years. But he, Israel, Jacob, shall be delivered out of it. Shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, not a day of 24 hours, but it's a period of time, says the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke. I explained this morning what that is. From off thy neck, and burst thy bonds, and strangers no more shall serve themselves of him. Now let us go over in the 21st verse. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith the Lord? When God begins to do this, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. Now, here's the verse that I want to talk about. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goes forth with fury. I want to ask you, have you ever seen any kind of a little whirlwind that ever amounted to a dime? Huh? Did a whirlwind coming through your yard ever make the grass grow greener? If it came through your garden, did it make the lettuce more greener? It's always been said, whirlwinds, too many of them, it's the sound of dry weather ahead. Isn't that right? But when that whirlwind gets bigger than that, then they begin to call it a tornado, a twister. The point is this. This whirlwind that God's going to bring through the land, it's like a tornado. Everything you think that's been going the right way is going to start going the wrong way. It's God's way of tearing man's system up so that he can show himself, and he will begin to exalt Israel little by little. It's not coming about in a day of 24 hours. Yes, politicians, how they like to gloat over the fact We've got the program. We've got the agenda. We've got this and that. We're going to start a new world era. That's why I preached the Tower of Babel. God will let you get so high with it, and then you're going to tear it all to pieces. He said confusion of languages, didn't he? He didn't come about with a whirlwind. But this goes to show you, brothers and sisters, when God begins to bring a whirlwind in the world, it means confusion's going to break out. What you thought 5 years ago was going in the right direction is suddenly going to reverse. A lot of things are going to come right back in your face. You said it then, what about it now? Yes, behold the whirlwind of the Lord goes forth. And it's got to smell of perfume. Rosebud. No. Anything but that. A continual whirlwind. It shall fall where? With pain upon the head of the wicked. Now, this is not some little whirlwind in your backyard or just across the garden. This is something, other brothers and sisters, going to whirling through every major high place in the world. God's compelled to do it because, first off, He's going to liberate Israel not one day or 2 days or such. But the end results of this whirlwind is going to throw the politicians of the world in such disarray, discord, confusion. They can't agree. It didn't go that way. That's the purpose of the whole thing. They've all been working for 50 years since they drove that thing up. And they look forward with glee. Oh, secretly behind the door, they planned, they plotted, they connived, they sold out. Don't tell nobody. That's why they want to take America's guns away from them. They try to make you think that everybody that has access to get guns is going to be somebody killing innocent people. That's a lie. They will never tell you, brothers and sisters, what happens in communities where the biggest percentage of them do have home defense weapons. There are more crimes stopped by somebody that's standing on the byline that has a gun and knows how to use it. But when anybody, brothers and sisters, their weapons have been taken away from them, do you think they're going to walk up behind a gangster and stick their finger in his back? No. I'll never forget. I take the National Rifleman's magazine. And this told about a sheriff and his wife in Oklahoma. This sheriff was pretty well notoriously known that he would let a man, we will say, get by with a lot of things, but after a while, when he's gone too far, the sheriff was absolutely going to put the handcuffs on him. Well, he did one man this way in a certain town out there, and this man bragged, I'm going to get that sheriff one of these days. Now, sisters, listen to me. And sure enough, the sheriff and his wife was driving right down Main Street. He's driving, he's come up to the red light. He was sitting there. And he had a little wife. She was not one of these little cowardy things. She knew how to shoot. She happened to look across the front of her husband, and there come that guy across the street. She didn't say anything because at first she was kind of startled. But that guy come right across the street while that sheriff was still sitting at the red light, walked right up and shot him. But that little wife, she just reached down in his holder and pulled his pistol out and shot him before he got back across the street. That's the time when I can say crime don't pay. That's the time when I can say the citizen has a right to carry out the law themselves. And you don't hang the president and the senators that says no, because it'll come home to you one of these days. But they've been trying to lie and pull this thing on American. Don't never wake that red blood up. You push it, push it. Go on, shout some more. It'll be worse than the hour of the Minutemen and the ride of Paul Revere. Because God intends to bring this whirlwind, and I'll have to say, when we crossed out of 2000 into 2001, God's millennium is on. And His whirlwind's going to start. You're going to see it manifested in the political spectrum of the world. They don't know it right now. But that's why I have to say, when it didn't go the way they thought it ought to have went, yes, I thought it first. What's going on in Florida? But the longer it went, now's when I have to say, Lord, you have said in your word, you'll put up whom you will, you'll put down, you will abase them, and you will exalt them. If this is God's time to start showing some things, what a better way to do it than to start with the inauguration of another president. When they thought they had it sewed up, oh yes, he got the popular vote. That don't mean worth a dime. Because I have to believe in the eyes of God, God saw some snakes down here in political office. He's going to cause them to start biting one another, and they're going to wind up worse than snake handlers. That's the truth. Maybe you don't like me saying this, but it's a fact. They're educated crooks, and they sure know how to twist the truth and turn it into a lie. And I have to say, God is capable taking any situation of man and turning it around and pitting it against him. And I have to say, from now on out, till the week of Daniel starts, you're going to see political systems, political ideas absolutely go berserk. Because it's God's way of pushing this aside, and God said, it's going to go my way, and I'll show you why. Because it's going to be a day of His wrath. He don't like what we've been doing. He don't like why we've been doing it. And how much of our educators have said, but God's some old crank somewhere sitting with his arms folded. You'll find out one of these days. He's unfolded His hands. He's looking very brilliantly at you and me. And when, brothers and sisters, this thing starts whirling and you see nothing but confusion break out and things begin to go just opposite, then don't say Raymond Jackson started it. I didn't do it. But I can see it in the Scriptures. Friday, when we got that first thing that he read this morning, I never told the wife. We went to bed and I dozed off a little bit. It was just like when I lay up here that night during the convention. Off and on all night long. I couldn't get all that military preparedness off of my mind. Lord, all I could think, Lord, if this is that close, then Lord, why is it we see the world just so melancholy, like they've been doped? They're all taking sleeping pills because they don't want to listen to the fuss. What a shame. Now, brothers and sisters, I believe I said this morning, the black people had a right to be delivered out, second-class citizenship. They did. But to my black brothers and sisters, please, I got sense enough to know there's Islamic black agents in this country, just ready. They've been sowing the seed for months on end. And they will take the present political situation and turn it in reverse. Because they're, in their eyes, we're going to get what we're after or we'll tear it up. I saw on the TV the other morning, already 64% of the black people are engaged in the stock market, while only 82% of the white people are engaged in it. That kind of sounds like, brothers and sisters, there's 64% that's done went beyond second-class citizenship. That don't mean that they're driving Lincoln Zephyrs or Cadillacs. How many knows what I'm looking at? God never did promise you that the day will come when you will have a perfect utopia on this earth and you'll not have no poor people. Jesus said, the poor you have with you always. Right? Then why don't we take his word for it? Who do we think we are? We're going to change it. Now, I didn't say try to hinder it. But brothers and sisters, when you begin to try to say, we're all going to have a slice of the pie. No, you're not. Because there's thousands of whites and blacks ain't even worth it. They want it gift to them. That reminds me, I got it at home. It's sort of like a proverb. Back in the 30s and 40s, Kim, when President Roosevelt, he launched certain types of agricultural programs to help the farmers. And this thing goes something like this. A friend of this man, we'll say lived near Shelbyville. He'd signed up this thing for not raising hogs. He didn't raise so many hogs and he got a check for $1,000. So this man that has looked at that, this man's a friend of his. So he writes to the Agriculture Department asking, seeing that my friend has received this enormous check for $1,000 for not raising so many hogs, will you please inform me what type of hogs is it best to not raise then? On top of that, seeing that it takes so many bushels of corn to fatten out so many hogs, and seeing therefore that I will not have to raise so many bushels of corn, can I sign up also for the non-growing corn program? If so, what I'm looking at is to eventually build my whole plan, my program, that I can realize about $80,000 a year because I want to buy an airplane. What's the best kind of corn to not grow? And while you're waiting to send me a reply to this, please, when's the next time that you pass out free cheese? And I'd like for some free fruit stamps. That's the way America has been for many a year. Now, it's maybe not that elaborate, but it's been to a lot of people, both black and white. They was born under an era of time. It fell in their hand as quick as they could hold it out. And when they're 80, they still think it ought to be there. God never promised that, you know it. There's a lot of black people that are dead today. If they could come up out of the grave and look at this generation, they'd say, God forbid that we should be like that. But what made it that way? Some loudmouth teacher somewheres come along with a program that instilled all of that in them. And I have to say, backwards and forwards across the American continent, from the suburbs to the Broadways. That's what I read, brothers and sisters, in 1946 on that brochure on the troop train. We will get in. We will pit their society against each other. We will take the slave period. We will magnify it. And we will pit them against. We will destroy America from within. It's been hard to stand here, brothers and sisters, to see a black brother or a sister sitting somewhere and try to give them the right impression of what you're talking about. But if you come in here, you're not coming in here to hear political speeches. You're coming in here, brothers, to hear something out about the Word of God and how to get your life lined up with God and get ready to be in the bride of Christ. Because the bride of Christ is not going to be made up of all white, all black, all yellow, nor all red. God's got it balanced the way He wants it. And He's going to wipe this earth, destroy Him, of every element of race that don't know Him and don't want Him. So brothers and sisters, take it seriously. We are living in the year of time. You're going to see that whirlwind. And I have to say, don't discredit God. Don't discount Him, what He's able to do. Because He can tear your little house and your little empire all to pieces. Because He's after a people. And I'll say this tonight. He's after getting the Gentile bride right and ready, and getting ready to cut Israel loose from all of her bondage, that she has to fear any nation, any empire. Because that's why God said, I will break His yoke. He's going to start exalting Israel. I'm glad. So you tell our black brothers, don't come in here with Jesus in one pocket and Louis Farrakhan in another. It won't work. It never has. And it never will. I'll never forget Brother Branham said years ago, he's done gone now. But he said Martin Luther King will lead his people to a slaughter. What did he mean by that? Because I believe he's seen at the end they will be marching and demonstrating with a motivation. They're no longer content to be second-class citizens or first-class citizens. They want to help shape America. Brothers and sisters, I say this tonight. God's going to shape America back the way He wants it, if He has to kill 2/3 of everything that's in it. He's got a way to do it, and 90% of our people today won't like it. Dan rather than all the rest of his bunch. Our modern politicians and our educators, oh, they're looking for the hour that we can come down strong in this new world order. And when I see the situation in the Middle East developing like it is, just as I said this morning, if what we can learn at Jericho was a type of God turning Israel loose in these last days and begins to magnify it and exalt it, then I have to say, Gentiles, the door of grace to the Gentiles is about ready to, and we're ready for the 7th seal. Now they can't play with the first 6 and come to a point of knowing what the 7th one was. I have to say tonight, across America, our Islamic agents visiting our black brothers, teaching and saying things, sowing the seeds that's going to burst and help to enlarge this whirlwind. They don't know it, but it's going to have a reversed effect. There's a lot of anger going on right now. A lot of threatenings are going on right now. We'll get even. That's been going on ever since November the 7th. Shame on people. I have to say, shame on white people. You're just ready to float and drift like driftwood. You don't even care. I do. I'm looking for the coming of Jesus. And I'm thankful to God for what He's allowed us to see. Faith Assembly, I know we're not like the majority. It's true, we have a revelation that's different, and I'm glad it is different. I wouldn't want to go and sit in one of these glass cathedrals with rippling water. That sound would be enough to put me to sleep. But that's where the Gentiles will come to today. Get all that magnificent materialism around. Oh, my land. That's just like heaven on earth. And You can stand there and just almost say, roses are red, violets are blue. You know what else? So tonight, brothers and sisters, in the days that lie ahead, sure, there's going to be days that you'll never hear a thing. All of a sudden, something's going to come on a stage somewhere and say something other. And brother, it's just going to begin to rock the boat. It's going to begin to set things in motion. And you're going to begin to say, if that keeps up, it's going to lead to trouble. America has never had a depression since the 30s, and I pray to God it never has to have one. I would be scared to think that in our major metropolitan cities, all of a sudden you had thousands walking the streets unemployed. Trying to live on unemployment is only good, we will say, for a year at the most. And all of a sudden the free hands-out runs out. And all the revenue the government was going to take in to help, we will say, share with this and that. You know good and well, brothers and sisters, you've got to have a revenue coming in if you're going to shell out and plan things, mold things, economical-wise, to affect, we will say, the mentality of a lot of people. But when you haven't got it to give out, then they're left to cry, complain, cry. Saints, when we can see Israel where she's at tonight, I have to say, take a good look at yourself. There is an element in this social world, even religious-wise, that is against you just as much as all the nations is against Israel. When Bud read that military side from, what I say, the American, the British, the European command, and so on and so forth, why do you think they would begin to put things in a state of readiness? Because they want to preserve their material interest in the Middle East. And I have to say, God is as concerned about our material assets in the Middle East as me having wings to fly. We never had it so good. We fought a war in Europe, in Asia, and we pumped our own gas out of our own gas fields from Oklahoma, plumb into Texas and New Mexico. Yes, we rationed gas. Ships were sunk on the high seas. But brothers and sisters, we were able to keep the machineries of America going. We fought a war. We built a fleet. And we had a navy that was equal to all the rest of the combined free world put together, because I saw a lot of it. But all of a sudden something happened. We act as though all of those gas wells went dry. They did not. That is a big, absolutely first-class lie perpetrated to you. Don't believe that stuff. Shame. Shame. Because, well, we don't want to be an isolationist. I'll say that the time's going to come when God's going to make you go home and shut your mouth and mind your own business and let me run this world affairs my way. Now, he may not say it in the manner that I did, but the end results are going to be just about like that. Because when they start messing into the affairs of the Middle East and they don't let God settle this, using Israel to do it, I'll have to say, he will send some kind of a magnetizing device, brothers and sisters, that will shut down the ignition system on everything that runs. And there sets army trucks, it won't start. There sets tanks, won't start. There sets jet airplanes. What's wrong? God just shut them down. Oh, he can't do it. He did. In 1968, when we was there, 2 young Israeli guides, they had been in the 6-day war. They were in armored columns. And they said when these Egyptian troops we captured, We found them sitting in these mountain passes. When the Israeli airplanes would leave and go out over the Mediterranean and come back over Cairo and all them military bases and bomb. Then they had a light plane and they come back up the roads, leading back up to the Sinai. They traced them convoys. When we captured some of these Egyptian troops, they was driving brand new Russian army trucks. Says we do not know what went wrong. We was driving these trucks along and all of a sudden it was just like they stopped running. They would run no more. A lot of people think that God's power is so kiddish. Well, it made an iron wedge float one time because a man was afraid to go back to the one he borrowed it from. So he looked up with tears, believing in his, oh God, I borrowed that from a friend of mine. Lord, I ain't got the money to pay him. And that old iron wedge just come on. I believe it. But that bunch that goes to college, they don't. But I have to say, you stick around, brother. God's going to show you something one day. He's going to make you nervous. Yeah, your hand's going to start doing that. He knows exactly, brothers and sisters, how to put a bolt in anything. Stop it. So my point is tonight, brothers and sisters, don't never think. God's not looking at 2001. I have to say, it's the beginning of His era time. And that day of the Lord is hanging. That whirlwind is beginning to build up momentum. You're going to see some things develop in this country that's going to begin to tear certain ideas to pieces. And a lot of people ain't going to like it. Well, but who did this? God did it. And I have to believe, brothers, by the time we go through the next 4 years, you're going to see some things in existence you never thought would exist. And you're going to see some things that's existing now is going to be thrown away. Because God's going to bring it to an end because He don't want it to go that way. This is His era. And modern politicians are not going to stop it. It's true. God's not going to bring it about in a day of 24 hours. But as we see the weeks and the months come and go, little by little we're going to begin to set back and say, thank you, Lord. I'd rather be on your side than their side. So I say to my black brothers and sisters, come, get on the Lord's side. Get your heart full. Understand what you're going to be. To every black brother, every black sister, if you walk with Him, you're going to leave this world one of these days and all of its headaches, all of its tears, and you're going to be taken to glory. You're going to see something other that's going to show you exactly what your position is going to be in the new millennium. And you're going to come back with your husband, the bridegroom, and you're going to be invested with a sword. Yes, there's authority going to be invested in you. You're not coming back fighting against whites or blacks or anything. You're coming back, brothers and sisters, fight the evil first. And then you're going to, the black will rule over black, the white over white. God, when God does it, He does it right. He don't mess it up. Now, a lot of people may not like it that way, but that's the way it's going to be. So, brothers and sisters, I have to say tonight, if you see something coming down the road politically, you don't understand it, just get out of the way. God has a lot of ways. Whirlwinds can be coming right at you. All of a sudden, you can never anticipate what a whirlwind's going to do. But I have seen them, brothers and sisters, hit into a basket of nice white washed clothes. And a woman is hanging them up on the line. They just got one clothespin. And the whirlwind comes through and yanks that off of the line, and there it goes. Oh, now, Brother Jackson. Now I have to say, yes, brother, what? Because you ain't been where I've been. And you ain't seen what I've seen. Maybe you have, but you didn't have your eyes open. But I've said all of that to say this. God's on the throne. Jesus Christ is coming. Okay, how's that song go? Jesus is a coming. How's it go? Somebody, can't you hear? Tim? Brother Allen? Jesus is a coming. He is. He's coming right on schedule. And I have to say, it's almost so like I can hear that old steam engine. You know these diesel electric engines anymore, there's no romance about them. They got the same old growl. They all sound alike. But there was something about them old steam engines, them old drivers on the side. There was something romantic about them. Boy, when we would happen to be in Borden at 5:10 in the evening, when they call an old number 5 comes down the track, about 5:10 she rolls into Borden. When she leave Pekin, she could hear her set down on that old whistle. And sometimes people would go take the horses on the other side of a building somewhere so they wouldn't have to see that old chugging monitor. But that thing would come, and the old timer said, they'll never get it stopped. Too big. And finally it comes into the station. She's sitting there. And that old timer, and he never seen one before. They'll never get it started. That's just the way it is, brothers and sisters. I know people, brothers and sisters, used to absolutely stay in Borden until the train went. Brother Pixley, I'm sure, go back to your childhood days, as old timers in Pekin used to do the same way, just to see that old monitor come into town. Well, the Lord, He's a-coming. And I have to say, He's going to be right on time. Now, in the light of what has been read, I'm fully aware the news have announced, starting this weekend in Israel, in Egypt really, they call it a marathon conference. Arafat, all the Palestinian main big shots in Israel. Barak, he's going to try to present to Arafat the necessities for a certain type of peace compromise. They're going to work hard on it. But knowing what Arafat has demanded, you've got to realize the Israelite people will not adhere to it. But behind all of that, Iraq ready for action against Israel, Saddam Hussein says. Newsline USA. Iraqi President Saddam Hussein has said his nation is ready to take military action against Israel in defense of the Palestinians. And if necessary, would again take on the United States. In an effort to liberate Palestine from Israel, Saddam said, the Iraqi people are dying to fight. And it's not just Saddam Hussein, but 7 million Iraqis who have volunteered who want to fight to liberate Palestine. He made his remarks to a group of Arab artists in Baghdad earlier this week. Asian newspapers reported Friday. It's strange, our news media never touches a thing like this. Israelis aren't able to resist the Arabs. They are not able to resist Arab countries or even one sole country, Saddam said. Noted that Iraqis were determined to face United Nations embargoes placed on Iraq since the end of the 1990-91 war, and it was just 10 years ago that that thing went off this month. Iraq invaded Kuwait in August 1990, claiming the emirate was really a part of Iraq that had been taken away years before. Television interviews showed images of Saddam Hussein greeting and chatting with the Syrian actress Rehada and the Egyptian actor Mohammed Sobai, who was in Baghdad to present an anti-U.S. play. Earlier, Iraqi Defense Minister General Sultan Hashim Hamad said Iraq was ready to fight Israel and, if necessary, the U.S., once again in defense of Mideast Arabs and especially the Palestinians. The Iraqi armies, which is at the head of the armies in the region, is capable of facing up to the U.S. military technology. Hamad told the Iraqi Weekly at Zawah. There's more to it. Here's what another one just in says. Syria joins Iraq against Israel. Syrian President Bashar Assad has joined Iraq and Iran in opposing Israel by taking steps this week to guarantee eventual confrontation with the West, defense and intelligence analysts say. According to reports published Friday, earlier this week, Bashar reinstituted air links between Damascus and Baghdad for the first time in 20 years. Even as Iraqi President Saddam Hussein gave Iran permission to overfly its territories to deliver arms, ammunition, and other military goods to Iranian-sponsored Hezbollah guerrillas stationed in Lebanon. Intelligence sources told UPI on Thursday that Bashar was also working behind the scenes to broker a full rapprochement between rivals Iraq and Iran. The two Arab nations fought a war from 1980 to 88, believed the bloodiest in the Middle East. 500,000 people, at least three-quarters of them Iranians, died. Intelligence sources also said Bashar has given the go-ahead to his military chiefs to establish closer ties with Iraq's military in an effort to stage a coordinated response to Israel in the event of a war with the Jewish state. What shall we say? Brother, you go home and get your TVs in good shape. God will soon draw the curtain, and the world is going to see the biggest military play that the world public has ever seen. It's going to be bigger than Broadway. Back before the movies and theatrical houses, they had plays put on by actors. They had to get all the play, the backdrops and everything in place. But I have to say, all the actors are lined up. All the participants. Every nation knows her part. He's the director. And just as they used to say in the old theater houses, lights out. Everybody's yakking their heads off. Hello, Sister Brown. How are you? You been canning any beans? Lights out. You never did know how many she canned, because your eyes is fastened right on the platform. Oh, I have to say, what a play it's going to be. And the world's going to be shocked. Does that mean everybody's going to turn to the Lord? Nope. But there's some going to. So may the Lord be with us. Heavenly Father, tonight I pray. Lord, I'm just a mortal human creature. But Lord, I so thank you for your word. It's so real, Lord. There's not a book on earth that's like it. And it's a sad thing, Lord, when we look at the intelligence of human beings that can read it, and it looks like they have been smote dumb and ignorant because they can't see a thing. I have to say, Lord, thank you. You did not have to do this, but you did. Bless my brothers and my sisters, and help us, Lord, in the days to come. May we not close our eyes to reality, and may we not close our ears to the sound of your voice. Continue to direct our footsteps. May we truly be found willing to say, yes, Lord, here I am. May we be willing to follow you step by step, day by day. Bless this young people, Lord. May they grow, Lord, with a determination in their hearts. Because, yes, if they say anything in the public place, yes, it can be criticized. But, Lord, I have to believe one of these days you'll put some of them in a position somewhere they'll be asked a question. And then you'll give them the words to say. So, Lord, tonight we commit all this into your hand. And I have to say thank you, Lord, tonight. And I want to say this before I leave the platform. I read George Bush's testimony. I've even heard him say in some of his speeches that he had great confidence, faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, I'm not smart. But when I read that testimony, somehow or other I felt deep down in my heart, one of these days I'm going to get a chance to write him a letter. You know why? Because the first time he begins to say something publicly that begins to make it look like he wants to give in to the political pressure and not stand up for some things that we know is going to be a fact. I'm going to write a letter, Your Honor. Dear President, I read your testimony. But as I read that, you said how much you loved him because of the peace he gave to you. But please, Mr. President, have you ever stopped to think 2,000 years ago when that became a reality to some Jewish people that had been longing for the coming of their Messiah, and the political world wasn't even ready for it? Remember, when he did come, that was as important to those that believed and looked forward to that as now you look back and believe in it. But 2,000 years later, you take this same Bible to church with you. The same scriptures in prophecy that said he was coming, it came about. But the same Bible now says, this same Jesus that you see going away will come again in like manner. Mr. President, are you going to deny me the opportunity to believe in that? That's my heartthrob. I'm not carrying guns, dynamite, or nothing. But I carry conviction in my heart. I say, Mr. President, you're standing in my way. And if you're not careful, Mr. President, you're going to open that mouth one of these days and say something that's going to cause you to deny the very Savior that you say you love. Because these scriptures will testify against you. Think of it, young people. They might want to shoot me when it's over, but I'll have to say, well, it's just a few more months until we go anyhow. So I can say bye-bye. Brother Glenn, the last few years of life, they're wonderful. I'll defend this faith. Mr. President, you can search my pockets and my home. No, we're not like David Crush. We don't have dynamite and no weapons. And we're not telling people to stock up food supplies, because we're stocking up with a revelation and with a determination. We're going to get to see Jesus Christ split that heavens one of these days. And all you political men will, would to God,
That's right. Praise the Lord.
that one day you would have got on your knees and said, you say, oh, Brother Jackson, you wouldn't write a letter like that. Yes, I will. Don't kid yourself. If I have to write it, there'll be a copy right here and Bud's going to read it. Brother Pixley?
Right.
I'll have to say, it ain't like it used to be. But young people, I thank the Lord tonight. Brother Gobinder called me from South Africa. A few months back, a man called me from South Africa, Cape Town. He told me who his name was. He says, Brother Jackson, he says, I've been connected with the message people for years. But he says, everything has become so filled with confusion. He says, I find myself wondering. I feel like I'm empty. He wanted to be put on the mailing list. So we began to send him some contenders and some tapes. And then I told him about Brother Govinder up at Tungat. Well, he went to see Brother Govinder. Got acquainted. And in return, the brother at Cape Town, he asked Brother Govinder, come and minister to us. Well, he never had until just last week, I believe it was. Brother Strowman went there about 3 weeks ago, had a wonderful meeting. After that was over, Brother Govinder went to Cape Town. He told how that in Cape Town, the largest message church probably in all Africa was at Cape Town. And after Cape Town has been ravished with preachers from the States as well as the South African preachers. They quoted books, they used books and this and that. Brother Govinder said, we went there, no publication, just word of mouth. And the first night, people began to venture out. 2 men from this large church, I believe one was the pastor, he came and confessed to Brother Govinder. And he said, I feel so empty. He says, I need something. Brother Govinder said he preached every night without a book nor a quote nor nothing. And he was able to see the Spirit of God move upon some people. One man in a message church, he had married this young wife of his. She had been in a Pentecostal church, and God would use her there with tongues and interpretation. But the minute she marries this man, and here she sits in the Methodist church, she just shuts up. So she came to this meeting. And somehow or other, God set her free, and God used her in the meeting. And both men said, we'll never go back to that again. And now that they sent word to him, says, we want some more contenders. We want to see. So brothers and sisters, I have to say, not because it's me. I've said many times, what good would me be standing here if there wasn't a people, brothers and sisters, to be a base to launch this? And now that they want to catch up. So I have to say, Lord, help us to get it to them. We'll empty our old boxes of all the past issues we got if we have to. But if they want to be brought up to date. So I have to say tonight, I'll shut up. But I'm so thankful for what God's doing. He's going to have a bride, and he's going to have an Israel, and they're like 2 racehorses. They're on the last stretch, they're coming for the wire. Praise God. One goes under the wire, and the bride's going up. You're going to have it, Brother Al.